Final product of photosynthesis would be considered ATP or glucose?
Glucose, yeah, because these two steps together are photosynthesis. And so since the final product of this is glucose, that's what you consider the final product of photosynthesis. All right, well, let's get a little more into the details. We're now going to look at the light-dependent reaction first, since it's really the first one in the process. And we'll start off by talking about the light, actually, that comes in and hits the grana. The particles of light are called photons, in the same sense that atoms are the small building blocks of all the things that have mass around us, like the table and the air in our bodies are made out of these little atom particles. Light, which doesn't have any mass at all, is still made out of particles. Those are called photon particles. But what's interesting about photons is that even though they can be considered particles, they also have a wave nature to them. And you can picture them like this, that as the photon is traveling, it has an up-down motion like that, a wave-like property also. And for anything that can move with a wave-like property, like a wave-like motion, you can talk about its wavelength, which is basically how long each wave is. It's typically measured from the top of one crest to the top of the next. And what's interesting about photons is their wavelength determines what color they are. You can see the spectrum at the bottom there showing you how the different wavelengths of photons affect what color they are. So the shorter wavelengths, which are the violets and the blues, or I should say photons with shorter wavelengths, we see as violets and blue colored ones, and ones with medium wavelengths we see as yellows and greens, and the ones with the longest wavelengths we see as red colored photons. And white light is actually just a mixture of all of those. What's actually coming out of this projector are green photons and blue photons and red photons and yellow photons and orange photons. And whenever there's a mixture of all the colors, your eye interprets that as white light. All right, so the sun's light, which is white light, it's got all the photons, all the photon colors mixed together, comes down and goes into the leaf, and then goes into the mesophyll cells in the middle of the leaf, and then goes into the chloroplast organelles in the mesophyll cells, and eventually comes down and strikes the thylakoid membrane within the chloroplast organelle. And so now we're going to see the exact molecular mechanism by which that light is changed into the ATP and NADPH energy. Now the thylakoid membrane inside the chloroplast is hollow. It has a watery interior, and its walls are made out of membrane, out of phospholipid bilayer. Let's zoom in on it so we can begin to see what the molecules are like that carry out the light-dependent reaction. Now, somewhere in your textbook is a picture that looks like showing this same thing. That looks like this, that shows you all the molecules and things that are going on for the light-dependent reaction. As you can see, it's not trivial. There's a lot going on there, which maybe shouldn't surprise us. You know, light has no mass, and it's made out of these wave particle things. And to be able to change something as massless and ethereal as light into something much more solid like ATP energy and NADPH energy is, it's not an easy undertaking. And so there's a lot of proteins and non-proteins and things we're going to see going on here. And I'm just kind of bracing you. There's a complexity to the process. It's what's called a Rube Goldberg machine. Rube Goldberg was this cartoonist from the 20s, and he used to draw crazy machines to do things. This is Rube Goldberg machine of how to kill off a fly. If there's a fly inside your house and you want to get rid of it, you build this machine. Here's how it works. You get some acid here. The acid drips off and dissolves this rope. The rope shoots the slingshot up into this bunch of garlic. The garlic falls into the syrup. The syrup squirts against the wall and attracts the fly to that spot, but the syrup also makes this crazy bat thing swing, which bats the fly. The fly falls to the ground. The fish sees the fly and tries to jump and get the fly. The fish lands in the net and pushes down the boot and squashes the fly, and then the cat eats the dead fly. And that's the end of your fly problem. And so I'm just saying, be prepared for a little complexity. There's a lot of proteins and molecules that are going to be interacting to do this photosynthesis process. All right, so let's start off with a chlorophyll molecule. There, here we go. Within the, or in the membrane of in the thylakoid membrane within the chloroplast are some molecules called chlorophyll molecules, and they are pigment molecules, which just means colored molecules. They're actually green colored, and that's where they get their name from. Chloro means green, and phyll means leaf, so it's the green pigment that they discovered inside the leaves. And these chlorophyll pigment molecules can absorb light. Here's the structure of them. The part that actually absorbs the light is this gray colored part they colored in gray right here. And notice it's mostly rings of carbon and nitrogens, like they're part of the carbon ring and a nitrogen, more carbons and a nitrogen, carbons, nitrogens, that sort of thing. Pardon me. In the middle of the ring system is a magnesium ion. I guess that just helps it absorb light a little bit more efficiently. Now, there's actually, plants have actually two variations of this chlorophyll molecule. One's called chlorophyll A and one's called chlorophyll B. And you don't have to know molecularly the difference between the two, but in case you're curious, chlorophyll A has a carbon with some hydrogens attached onto it right in this corner right there. And chlorophyll B has a carbon with a hydrogen and an oxygen attached to it right there. It's not a big difference. The rest of the molecule is exactly the same. It slightly changes the color. When we do laboratory on photosynthesis, you'll isolate chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B from leaves, and you'll see that one of them is kind of a brighter green, like the green on this box right here, and another one's kind of a duller green, like here. But they're both still chlorophyll. In addition to the ring part of the chlorophyll where it absorbs the photons, there's also a hydrophobic tail, as you can see down here. It's got nothing but carbons and hydrogens. That tethers it to the membrane. The chlorophylls are supposed to stay within the thylakoid membrane, so you need a hydrophobic domain to keep it stuck to the membrane. All right, let's see. Now, because mostly we're going to be concerned with the chlorophyll molecule's ability to absorb light. And so I'm going to show it with a simplified diagram, just sort of a ring-shaped thing with the magnesium ion in the center to represent the chlorophyll molecule. All right, now those chlorophyll molecules have lots of bonds. Well, you just saw in the last diagram, lots of carbon and nitrogen bonds involved. So there's a lot of electrons there. And one of the properties of electrons is they can absorb photons. When an electron gets hit by a photon, the electron becomes energized. The electron has more kinetic energy than it did before. So when a photon hits a chlorophyll molecule, one of the chlorophyll molecule's electrons becomes energized. You can think of it as sort of boinging around, like jumping around within the chlorophyll molecule. Now, chlorophyll molecules are found in clusters within the thylakoid membrane. They tend to group together within the thylakoid membrane. And a cluster of these chlorophyll molecules is called a photosystem, which I'm going to be abbreviating as PS in your notes. Cluster of chlorophyll molecules in the thylakoid membrane is a photosystem. Now, when a photon strikes any of these chlorophyll molecules, the electron gets energized in that chlorophyll molecule, but the electron can jump around within the photosystem. It can jump from one of the chlorophyll molecules to the other. And so that's what it'll do. It gets so much kinetic energy it starts hopping around the photosystem. But eventually it will get trapped in the middle of the photosystem. In the middle of the photosystem are two special chlorophyll molecules, sometimes called the special pair, or sometimes the reaction center. And they are the ones that trap energized electrons. All right, so this photosystem has trapped one energized electron in its reaction center. And what happens next is it waits for a second energized electron. So the sun is still shining on it, photons are still hitting it. Oops. There we go. Oh, actually I was going to show you this. Maybe I'll show you this first. This is a figure I ripped off from another textbook. It shows the photosystem as kind of having a bowl shape to it. Those little round molecules are the chloroplasts. I'm sorry, the chlorophyls, and there's the special pair in the reaction center. And what I kind of like about this, if you think of the energized electrons being like a little marble, it's going to bounce around a little bit, but eventually it's going to fall down to the middle. Now, real photosystems, I don't think actually have this bowl shape to it, but it's a good way to intuitively grasp it, that the electrons always end up in the middle of the photosystem. Anyway, what happens next is another electron will become energized, and like the first one, it'll skip around a little bit within the photosystem from chlorophyll to chlorophyll, but eventually it too will end up trapped in the reaction center. And when the reaction center has collected two energized photons, there they go, then the reaction center is full, and what's going to happen next is it's going to pass those pair of energized electrons to some other molecules in the thylakoid membrane that will